Hi, and welcome to the 12th episode of the Student Recap Podcast, Great Geopolitics 2. Today, I'm with Benjamin again, and we'll just start off with an interesting topic. North Korean soldiers have been spotted in Russian territory and possibly will be advancing into Ukraine.
So, I don't think they're going to be advancing into Ukraine because that would be viewed as even more of an escalation than a third party already having soldiers in the war. Right now, I believe they are being integrated with Russian soldiers and formations, and they're currently in active combat in the Kursk region of Russia.
But isn't the Kursk region of Russia illegally annexed?
No, that's the region of Russia that Ukraine invaded.
Oh, okay, so it's still on Russian homeland. Okay,
Yeah.
I get that. Because I thought that they were being sent into illegally annexed territories that are technically part of Russia, but they're actually Ukraine.
I haven't heard of that, but I have heard of North Korean soldiers fighting in the Kursk region of Russia.
Okay, and do you think they would be tactically superior to Russian soldiers or not?
Currently, I believe there is one Korean translator per, I think 3 Russian officers, but it might be more Russian officers than translators.
That's a lot.
That is not a lot of translators.
One Korean soldier.
No, one translator.
Okay, one translator.
Per, 3 high-ranking Russian officers.
Oh, okay, I thought per
it's not
3 normal
per
soldiers.
lieutenant.
No, okay. Well, that must be pretty bad then.
It is very bad.
What are they, babbling at each other?
Yeah, so there's not translators between
the low level
units on the ground.
Yeah.
So, the Koreans will just, charge into an area that's already Russian-controlled or something.
And wait, can't they just use some translating software, on their communication devices?
But that's not, fully...
Yeah, it's not fully, understandable.
Yeah.
Okay, also, 2 weeks ago, Israel and Iran exchanged missile fire, obviously with Iran attempting to attack Israel first, and then Israel sending back missiles towards Tehran.
I think Israel used F-35s to bomb Tehran.
Yeah, okay. Wait, is a missile strike bombing, or is it just missile strike?
Missile strike is a cruise missile or a ballistic missile.
But
versus bombing is a gravity bomb dropped from a fighter aircraft.
Oh, so did they actually send planes and bomb Tehran? Okay.
Yeah.
Were they just really, undercover planes? Because in the
F-35s
videos...
are stealth.
Oh, they're stealth. Okay.
So you can hear them, but you can't see them on radar, which is why the moment bombs start hitting the ground, the sky opens up with a bunch of anti-aircraft artillery, because Tehran is mostly defended by manually aimed flak guns.
You know what's funny? Probably on social media, people confuse both events because there are clips of the missile strikes in both Tel Aviv and Tehran that are at night, which could be easily confused by the average TikToker.
Yeah.
And that would maybe lead to disinformation if you had, the wrong side getting shot at or being, attacking another country.
I believe during the Iranian strike on Israel, were there, 2 injured or something?
There were 2 injured, and I don't even think they were inside Israel.
No, I think they were. I think it was just, falling debris.
Oh, okay.
But most of the explosions you see from Israel is just missiles impacting the desert somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because there wasn't any, precision strikes on anything of value or civilian infrastructure.
Well, they almost hit the Mossad, or, CIA equivalent for Israel. They were, about a kilometer from their building, which would have been kind of bad. Because that's, them hitting a U.S. CIA depot.
Well, so Iron Dome has the thing where you can drag a little circle or a polygon around structures you want to protect, and if they calculate that the missile's not going to strike inside of that polygon or probably 100 yards from it, they won't try to shoot it down.
Oh, okay. So it's risk management to
yeah.
allocate resources for more pressing matters.
Yeah, because you can't intercept every single rocket that's going to impact the desert.
Mm-hmm. And then, what's funny is that even...
Wasn't there a shooter in Tel Aviv, hours before the Iranian missile strike as well?
I believe there was some other terrorist plot, yes.
There was a mass shooting in Tel Aviv hours before the missile strike, if I'm correct.
Yes, it was somewhere around those events. What's funny is that the conflict in the Middle East has been going on not just between Israel and Iran, but by literally every country for thousands of years. In history right now, we're learning about how there were like 3 different empires and they all took over neighboring lands in Mesopotamia. So there were the Babylonians, the Akkadians, and then the Assyrians.
Yeah, but that wasn't religious as much as it was just wanting to conquer land.
You're right.
Right now, it's more of a religious war. But I mean, there was still the Crusades.
Yeah, well, I mean, what if the ancient city-states were fighting over their gods more important than the others?
Speculation.
Speculation, huh? No, I do think that there was one city, Assur, that tried to make all the other cities only have one god, which was Assur. And Assur is like the predecessor to Zoroastrianism, if you know what that is. It's the guy with the wings.
Okay.
Which is actually now a banned religion in Iran because the government only allows Islam. And then also, French President Emmanuel Macron visited Morocco to visit the king and a few other important state leaders. And he either received a gift or gave a gift to the Moroccan state leaders. But what was important about this meeting was that it was about strengthening economic ties between France and Morocco because France, they're kind of annoyed at the insane migration from North Africans into Europe. Not as much as Italy's annoyed about it, but by strengthening economic ties with Morocco and making the economy stronger in Morocco, there would likely be less immigration towards Europe, specifically from Morocco. Any thoughts on that?
Currently, because the EU's policy is just to accept all refugees, Europe is currently just being flooded by refugees from regions in war, such as Africa.
Yeah, but more specifically Syria, because the majority of boats sunk off the Aegean, illegal boats that shouldn't be taking migrants into Europe, that sink off the Aegean are carrying Syrian immigrants that went through Turkey. Because I feel like for Syrians, it's like we only have to cross one country to get to Europe, but for most African nations, you'd have to make a much longer trek. And also, I'm surprised that Spain hasn't done anything in the sort of manner like the French president has, because he has a much closer connection to Morocco. I think, in fact, Spain just has a more forceful opinion on this because I think they've mobilized EU police and also used EU funds in order to build a wall in the enclave that they have in Morocco. And basically what happens is that this wall, if these illegal immigrants try to cross that wall and they successfully get to the other side, they can claim refugee status. So this wall that's built in a Spanish enclave in Morocco is absolutely fortified. They have riot police stationed there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's a very violent scene whenever there's a large mob that tries to cross the border. Also, so a few years ago, there was this Chinese foreign minister named Qin Gang, and he was essentially Xi Jinping's right-hand man. Around 2016 or about, he was just a normal person in government. But from that point until 2023, he rose in power just because, he was a very hard worker in the government, though people called him very selfish. And he became Xi Jinping's right-hand man. But during that time, he was also spending time in America, obviously, as he had duties to be a diplomat and some foreign minister things as well. He met this woman. Now, this woman, she was a originally Chinese national, but then she moved to the UK when she attended Oxford University, and then she came to America and she became a journalist. so this guy, Qin Gang, he has an affair with her, apparently, and he's deposed from his government position and disappears from around November 2023, and we only know more information about his whereabouts now. So what the Chinese government suspected was that this British national who's living in America, who was originally a Chinese citizen, she was actually like an operative for a spying agency, most likely MI6. Is that the British spy agency?
Yeah, I believe so. MI6, I think, is foreign.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And due to MI6's policy, they could not confirm or deny that she is a spy. The Chinese government got more suspicious, and they deposed Qin Gang from his position as a foreign minister, which is like really high. He was essentially the top diplomat in the country for China. And he also had a son, apparently, that most likely Chinese officials were tracking social media accounts, and they found out that he had a secret son. And basically, the main reason that they fired him from his position as head of State Department, or the equivalent, was because, one, they thought he was dating a spy, and two, he had a child, like, completely secret from all of his normal duties, and that's, like, looked down upon, either by Xi Jinping or the moral standards in China. You have any thoughts on that, Benjamin?
Not really.
Not really? You just think it's, like, normal for that to happen?
Yeah.
Also, so I was watching the French news this weekend to get some comprehension in, and I realized there was an insane focus on American politics, even though the American politics don't really affect them. Though France is a superpower, well, not a superpower, but an important power in the European world, and they have a lot of trade with the U.S., I didn't expect 50% of the news coverage from a specific channel to only be about the Donald Trump and Kamala Harris presidential race. Because obviously there's more pressing issues domestically for them, so why cover America?
Because it affects them regionally, because if Trump wins, he's pledged to end the war in Ukraine by either mass sanctions on Russia and cracking down on the loopholes, or stopping aid to Ukraine if either of them stop peace discussions. And then Kamala Harris has relatively weak foreign policy stances. Mm-hmm. So it affects them regionally because Russia might get ideas depending on who wins.
And so theoretically, if Ukraine is taken over by the Russians due to a lack of aid, what would happen in that scenario?
I think the Baltics or Poland would be next.
But Russia wouldn't invade a NATO country.
Putin wants to reinstate the USSR.
That's pretty bad.
But if you think about it, because Ukraine is a democracy, if the U.S. pulls out of supporting a fellow democracy, Trump has already previously stated that he's willing to withdraw from NATO. So the U.S. might not support the Baltics if they get invaded by Russia.
And the Baltics would be relatively easy to invade.
Yeah,
just judging on
they're really flat geography, so it's hard to defend and easy to push armor through.
Yeah, and then they'd just be pushed to the coast, and there's not enough like ships to take all the country out. I think that theoretically, if there's just a ceasefire, Ukraine is forced to stay a neutral state, like in eternity, and Russia has to stop their invasion. I think that's the solution.
If there's a ceasefire, that only benefits Russia. Especially if Ukraine stops getting aid during the ceasefire, because then Russia can rebuild its military strength and attack whenever it wants to, versus Ukraine is just stuck in the position it's in if they stop getting aid from the U.S.
I see. Well, what I would propose is that a ceasefire is made. Ukraine has to cede parts of its territory that are taken by Russia, right?
And what, it joins NATO?
It stays as a like wall-ish to remain neutral, but they keep receiving U.S. aid in order to rebuild their infrastructure for the country.
I think I said this during the voting episode, but Ukraine has put out a peace plan where it joins NATO, cedes all of the territory that Russia, or the front line stay the same, and just that territory becomes whichever side controls it currently. They join NATO, and they become the premier fighting force in Europe, replacing U.S. soldiers because they have the most experience against the power that Europe is most likely to have to deal with.
Okay, so
Which seems like a very reasonable peace plan.
It seems reasonable, but Ukraine's a bit ambitious to become like the world's, Europe's best army.
They're not going to be Europe's best army, but they're going to be the army with the most experience fighting the power that Europe is most likely to face in the near future, versus the U.S., which for the last 20-ish years has only fought against insurgents.
Yeah.
In significant overmatch compared to what we've been fighting against.
Also,
so Ukraine would have the most experience against a near-peer adversary, and they'd have the most combat experience in recent years.
It also in the Near East area, or near the Caucasus actually, the country of Georgia, which is obviously under partial Russian influence, has this bill in their Congress or Parliament, whatever you want to call it. It's called the Foreign Agents Bill. Basically, whichever way that this bill goes, and it's if passed, it will impose a 20% limit on foreign aid on companies before they have to register as alien agents. So, for example, if Samsung was in Georgia and they obviously receive all their funding from Korea, then they would have to register as a foreign agent, and then they would probably have less rights as a business than national businesses. Though this might seem like a good idea in the base case, it actually gets closer to authoritarianism because control over business is just part of the steps towards autocracy. But if reverted, then the Georgia Dream Party, which is a more EU looking party, they would strengthen democracy in the country since they would have support for the next elections. And Georgia would become a more European nation than a more Russian-leaning nation. If the bill is passed, then it would become closer to a Russian proxy.
Okay, going off of the business theme, just a little disclaimer before I say this. We're recording this before the election results come out, so I don't know how relevant this is going to be in a week. But Trump has vowed 25% tariffs on Mexico unless Mexico cracks down on border crossings.
That's actually dumb. Mexico doesn't even produce that much stuff for us.
Mexico is becoming a significant trade partner with the U.S., and I believe is the second biggest trade partner with the U.S., and the first is China.
Okay, wait, but
so
is it agricultural stuff, or what is Mexico
sending? Agriculture and manufacturing.
Manufacturing, yes, because a lot of automotive companies are having plants in Mexico instead of China because it's equally as cheap for them to do it there.
And the shipping costs are lower.
Yeah, because all you have to do is literally get it across the border.
Yeah.
But then also that brings in a risk of smuggling within those car imports into the U.S. because that's a lot of containers you'd have to sift through. And if the cartels take over the automotive industry, it would be plausible that they would try smuggling cocaine or fentanyl within car shipments.
I mean, they already try to smuggle illicit substances over the border through on-the-ground border crossings in, shipments of produce.
Yeah, specifically in avocados, because there's one cartel, I forget their name, but they have actually taken control of this entire farms network in central Mexico that produces avocados. And they basically have a stronghold on the price of avocados because they're the ones who control production. And as you said earlier in some episodes, the Mexican drug cartels, they're more focused now on actually trafficking humans because that's more profitable than just drugs, right?
Yeah. I believe, this is a little outdated, but I believe they charge 20,000 USD to smuggle one person across the border.
How do you have the money to do that if you're so, Desperate?
Because the alternative is you become a drug mule.
Oh, yeah. So either way,
either
you're
you
gonna
pay them 20,000 or you become a drug mule for them and you smuggle stuff across the border. But either way, you're giving the cartel money.
Yeah. Oof. That's some pretty bad extortion and blackmail. And so do you think Kamala would extend Biden's policy on like producing semiconductors within the US and divesting from like TSMC, for example?
I think both candidates would, because if China invades Taiwan, which they probably will in the near future meaning sometime in the next 4 to 8 years, then we won't have access to pretty much any advanced semiconductors because TSMC is based in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And they're most likely going to destroy their factories before China can get their hands on the factories.
Yeah.
And get the advanced technology.
I just think Trump isn't as focused on that part because he'll be like, no, I can scare away China, I'm Trump.
Well, but Trump's also trying to put American jobs first and give Americans jobs in general, but also in manufacturing.
Question, does Trump support the American steel plant being in American hands, or does he want it to get sold to Nippon Steel? Do you know about that?
What
So
is
basically,
Nippon
there's
Steel?
this company called American Steel. They've existed for about 150 years, and they have some financial troubles right now. And this Japanese steel manufacturing company called Nippon Steel is offering to buy them out. And
So, based on Trump's policy, I would assume he doesn't support that, but I don't know what his actual stance is.
because the thing about it is that even though on the surface news agencies are reporting it as it'll be horrible for the community, it'll actually incentivize the community to work more. It would actually make these companies have more money because Nippon Steel would invest a lot. And they do have a contract that would guarantee that the American steel plant would be maintained and it wouldn't be offshored for at least 5 years, I believe. And I think that would be better for the economy for us to have just, it's one company sold to a Japanese company, which Japan is our ally,
Yeah,
right?
Japan is a significant U.S. ally, so
And
it
it's,
wouldn't be that bad.
and it saves the jobs that would have been lost if the company went bankrupt and couldn't do anything else. Thank you for watching the 12th episode of the Student Recap Podcast, Great Geopolitics. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back.